Okay, here we go. Let's get started. Mind over Manuscript Challenge. This is the third year of the Mind over Manuscript Challenge. This is one of my favorite things that I've ever put together to help writers overcome self-sabotage. It's very easy, very accessible, right? I'm not asking you to do an extremely heavy lift this week. I'm giving you tools that you can use again and again to get yourself unstuck into the future. So today we are going to focus on the story that you tell yourself. This is the name of the book that I have coming out soon. This is the drum that I beat almost every single day for writers. We have extraordinary storytelling skills, and we use them intentionally on the page, and we forget that we're always using them on ourselves. And sometimes we're seeding that inner storytelling ability to our inner saboteur, right? Who does not have the same goals that we have. So I'm going to teach you how to take control of the story that you tell yourself today. Please do keep introducing yourself in the chat. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sue Campbell. I'm a mindset and marketing coach for authors and an author myself. And I have two fantastic colleagues in the Happily Ever Author Club. Rochelle Ramirez is a developmental editor, and Anne Hawley, who I think I saw in the Zoom room today, is a developmental editor. These are two of the most brilliant developmental editing brains I have ever had the pleasure to witness, and I know for sure I'm a better writer because of them. Ruth, if you could make sure to mute everybody, I heard a little bit of feedback there. Okay. So here's how the challenge is going to work this week. If you missed the kickoff call, I'll make this really quick. You're going to choose a goal for this week, and I will help you choose the goal wisely, right? We don't want to overcommit and set too large of a goal and set ourselves up for failure. We actually want to set it on the small side. And then if we exceed it, fantastic. Every morning, you're going to get an email that's going to have details about what we're doing that day. There's basically a live call, your own goal that you're working on, and a writing prompt. We're going to have live training each day at 10 a.m. this time Pacific. We will have live coaching on the calls. So first, I'm going to give you a lesson on mindset, and then we're going to have live coaching for as much time as possible on the calls. Probably slightly less time today because this is a bigger introductory lesson. Then I'll have a journal prompt each day, and you can post that journal prompt in the community, or you can do it on your own. If you're not a community person, that's okay. I want you, this is for your benefit, right? Not for you to perform for anybody else. But if community helps you, fantastic. If it doesn't, do it for yourself. And then you're going to work on your goal and post in the accountability thread on Circle. And Ruth will drop a link in the chat for the Circle group, for the accountability group. But the challenge has a little group chat, and you can win prizes. You can win a spot in the Happily Ever Author Club. We've got varying levels throughout the week, ending in a 6-month membership. So you're going to post your goal, or you're going to work on your goal and then post that you've done it in the accountability thread. So that's how the challenge works. You'll have 24 hours to watch the replay, right? The reason I'm doing that is because your inner saboteur will want you to put off watching it. So I'm giving you a deadline to help make it a priority. But we will give you, if you miss anything, Friday through Sunday, we'll repost the replays for all of the days over the weekend so that you do have a chance to catch up. All right. So choosing your goal, I want you to pick a manuscript or a smaller writing project. Pick a marketing activity. That's also totally fair game. I got an email from someone who wanted to restart her website and blog. She's like, is that okay to do in the challenge? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can do that. Then I want you to make a to-do list for that project. Break things down into as small of a task as you can possibly manage. And you may currently feel so overwhelmed that day one, I'm opening the document. Right? That's all I'm doing today is opening the document. And that is a win. Your inner saboteur doesn't want you to think that's a win because it knows the minute you get that document open, oh shit, she might actually start writing again. Right? So it's going to feel too small. And your inner saboteur is going to tell you it's too small. It's not. I want you to break it down as small as possible. We want to accumulate some wins here. And then you're going to assign a small task to each day, right? And you're 100% committed to doing that small task. If you don't know what goal to set and you don't even have a project in mind, your goal is to write one sentence every day, right? You can use that goal if you do not know what else to do. And then I want you to decide when and where you will do it, right? So if we're just like, oh, sometime today I'm going to write one sentence, but first I got to call my aunt, and then I got to go pick up my prescription, and then I got to go do this, and then I got to go do that, right? You're not committed if you're not carving out a spot, just like you would for showing up at a doctor's appointment, and it's going to get pushed down to the end of the day, and you're going to feel exhausted, and your inner saboteur is going to talk you out of it. So decide when and where. If you can tack it onto another habit, like right after I drink my coffee in the morning, right after I get back from walking the dog in the morning, right? Whatever works for you. Some people are morning people. Some people are more creative at night. If you know that your best creative energy is in the evening, schedule it for your most fruitful creative time. Right? But deciding where and when, there's research that shows it's called an implementation intention, and you're 2 to 3 times more likely to actually do it when you decide when and where. Okay, the other thing we want to do, which I mentioned already, but really I want to underscore this, make the task so small that the inner saboteur can't object. Right? It's like, but all these other people need me to do all these other things. Your inner saboteur will really exploit your caregiving that you may have to do, or your responsibilities at work, and all of these things. So we got to make the task really small so your inner saboteur can't be like, you don't have time to do that. You don't deserve to do that until you take care of everybody else first. Be like, really? It's a sentence. Really? Right? So make it as small as you can. If you're already on a roll and you've been writing consistently, 500 words or more a day, fine, you can keep rolling with that. But if you are truly stuck, making it small will help you get that flywheel going. And then you'll be shocked at how much more you can do. But you still get the gold star, even if you just do the one sentence. The result of this approach is that you get control of your creativity back from the inner saboteur. Okay. So today we're going to talk about a few key concepts, and then we're going to expand on this through the rest of the week. So number one, I want to talk about what I mean when I say your inner saboteur, though I think we already know. Drop a 1 in the chat if you already know what I'm talking about when I say your inner saboteur, but I'll define it a little more. Yeah, we all know. And then we're going to talk about the concept of exoneration, which I will explain. We're going to talk about impermanence, and how that can be really useful for writers to think about. And then we're going to spend most of the lesson talking about the story that you tell yourself. Okay. So the inner saboteur, Stephen Pressfield calls it resistance with a capital R. Martha Beck, who's one of my favorite life coaches, calls it your inner lizard, right? We all have names, your inner critic. Somebody I know calls it a goblin. Right? It's a force inside you that actively tries to thwart your growth and prevent you from doing things that are important to your true self. You may be in a camp where you feel like this is an inner evil that we all have, or it's an external evil that we all have and we all fight. Or you may be on the side of the spectrum that says, I know this is a part of me that's trying to keep me safe and is just misguided and maladaptive. Whatever story works for you, for the motivations of your inner saboteur, that works, right? You can stick with whatever story you have about the inner saboteur. It may evolve over time, but I'm not asking you to change it. The way that you understand your inner saboteur right now is good enough to get through this week and really make some progress, okay? So exoneration. This is a concept that I was made familiar with by a therapist named Phil Stutz. He had a Netflix movie made about him with Jonah Hill. And I've been studying his work since I saw that documentary several years ago. So what exoneration is this is our human tendency to say, oh, once I get this thing, then I won't have to do this other thing anymore, or I won't have to feel this icky way anymore. So if I can just get an agent, I won't feel so insecure. If I can just get a big 5 publishing deal, all my other book writing is going to be easy, right? It's going to be anything that you say to yourself where you're like, then it'll be smooth sailing, right? That is your desire to be exonerated from the reality of just being a human being on the planet. There's no exoneration from having to do hard work of writing, the hard work of marketing, the hard work of mindset, right? And once we understand that, we're going to be less demoralized when we get what we want and we still don't feel as good as we thought we would, right? You can see any tech billionaire, right, who's gone through an IPO. You hear these stories of like these guys who have these big tech IPOs and they have this huge initial public offering and they're like, wow, I am still miserable, because they thought that was the thing that was going to exonerate them from their human experience. So once we release the need to be exonerated, we actually have a lot more power and a lot less suffering about just showing up every day, because we're always going to have to show up every day. Okay. Impermanence. So impermanence, maybe some of you are familiar with this concept from Buddhism, which is where I got it from. This is the universal law that nothing ever stays the same. Change is the only constant, right? Change is the only constant, and therefore we need constant effort to overcome our inner saboteur. This week, I wish I could. I would definitely bottle up and sell it to you if I could exonerate you from your inner saboteur forever. But I can't. What I can do is give you some tools to cope with impermanence and to cope with your inner saboteur, but you're always going to need to do the work. It does get easier. It does get faster, right? And then something may happen and it gets harder again for a little bit. Here's the cool thing about impermanence that people don't think of. Think of a time when you were like really, really rolling with your writing. Maybe it was just one afternoon, or maybe it was a week, or maybe it was a month, or maybe it was several months, right? But you were like, wow, I'm in a really good place. I hope this lasts forever, right? Think about that. And then how did you treat yourself when that was over? I'm going to guess, because I've talked to thousands of writers at this point, that you did a certain amount of self-blame and beating yourself up a little bit. Drop a 1 in the chat if I'm right about that. That when you fell off of a writing habit, all of a sudden you were like, oh, I'm such a piece of shit. I'm so lazy, blah, blah, blah. Impermanence, because that is the law of the universe, it makes sense that we have periods of inspiration and periods of discipline, and we also have periods of stagnation. You are never going to attain a permanent state of inspiration or discipline, and you don't have to. It's just a normal part of existing. So we can remove the suffering of the self-blame that something has gone horribly wrong, and thereby pick ourselves up a lot more quickly and get going again. Drop a 2 in the chat if that makes sense, and if you felt like a little bit of a release in your chest, right? Because we don't think about that. Like, we think of impermanence as like, oh, it's so scary because the world's always changing. It's actually really good news. It's actually really good news that impermanence is the thing. Okay. So increasing commitment is what we're here to do this week. You can learn to manage your mind to increase your commitment to your creative work and be willing to show up and do the work and override your inner saboteur. One of the absolute best tools that we have to do that is the story that you tell yourself, right? Because we already have the ability to tell stories. We're already writers. But we have to tell the story consciously, and we can't just let the inner saboteur tell the story and we're just like, oh yeah, that must be true. Because your inner saboteur's job is to tell you a bunch of bullshit to stop you from moving forward. So this is not the final cover of my book, but this is a book that I'm going to be releasing in October. If you come into the Happily Ever Author Club at the end of this week, you'll get to read an advanced reader copy right away. But I've been collecting my work of the coaching I've been doing writers since 2018, and everything I've learned is going in this book, right? These are time-tested strategies, and a lot of what I'm telling you this week is also going to be in the book. So I want to walk through the journal prompt with you today. We're going to do this sort of in real time. I want to see if I know what time it actually is right now. So we're going to take a couple minutes and you're going to write down the goal that you picked for this week, whatever project that is, stream of consciousness style. I just want you to write down all of the stories you're telling yourself about it. So the good, the bad, the ugly. We just want to clean out your brain about the goal that you've chosen for this week. All right. So I'm going to set a timer for a couple minutes and just get as far as you can. We can always expand this more later. So 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. So in the chat, if you are so inclined, you will be helping your fellow writers if you share some of the inner saboteurs stories that you found when you did that thought download. Yeah, Max says it's not good enough. And my chat's going to be moving fast, so bear with me. It's boring. No one will want to read it. Everyone will hate it. The plot isn't catching enough. The characters are boring. Who cares about them? Yeah, sounds like some inner saboteur shit, Max. Jim says, all my thoughts about Hex Marks the Spot are that it's a solid concept. I really like the character Penelope. I'm still trying to find Zelda's voice, though. I'm not currently as engaged with the physical writing as I'd like to be. Part of that may be that I'm working on developing a life as well as a habit stack, which I don't have yet. Now that I've moved to New Orleans, I'd love to average 5,000 words a day, but I'm still figuring out how to work with voice to text. I'm getting there and I'm getting better at it, which is evident since I'm using it to write this. I think I'm in the messy middle of the book and it feels overwhelming. I've been able to distract myself with plotting new stories and new books, including the sequel to this one. And this book isn't even written yet, so I'm not happy about how that's going. This is a great example, Jim. Thank you for being so comprehensive, right? Because we can see there's good and bad and indifferent and neutral, and like there's a whole mix of thoughts and stories that we have going on in our heads. And when we read this back through, we can pinpoint what are the ones that I can feel in my body, because the ones that you can feel are probably having an impact either for good or ill, right? So like when you think that's a solid concept and I really like the character, right? When I think that about my own work, I can like feel it in my chest, right? And it like keeps me wanting to move forward. And then when I'm like, I'm having all these other ideas and I'm distracting myself and this book isn't even written, and I'm, when you're sensing that, it's probably like a tightening or a constriction somewhere, I'm guessing. So when we do the thought download, we can then go back and read it, and we can find the ones that are having the most impact by sort of listening with our bodies. And if you can't feel that, that's okay. Writers, we're often up in our heads, right? So you can go to it from that more intellectual place of, oh, that's probably not doing me any good. And we're going to break down exactly how to look at the story you tell yourself and why we want to look at it. So I'll show you that in a minute. I'm going to look at a couple more of these. I wish I could read every single one, but like drop a 1 in the chat if this is helping you feel not so alone, because you see what other people's inner voices sound like too. Jen says, your project is self-indulgent. Your project is vitally important, right? We've got 2 different parts in there talking it out. Your goal isn't big enough and you'll never finish in time to make a difference. Your goal incorporates good self-care. Yeah, so another good example of it's like a back and forth, back and forth. I'm going to read one more and then we'll keep going. Kim says, this is my first time writing a book and I don't think it will be good enough for people to read. I don't know if readers will like it. I also think my dialogue will be boring for people to read. Also making time to work on my book. Yeah, right. And those are all very demotivating stories. Like if you think this isn't going to be good enough for people to read, and I don't think anybody's going to like it, and it's going to be boring, you're not going to be very motivated to write the book, right? So we need to reframe. We got to tell that story differently. And we're not going to lie to ourselves either. We're not going to just gloss over it with toxic positivity. So I'll show you that. Okay, these are great examples. I'm going to go back and read all of the chat later. So here's what we do. We tell a story, right? And you can just think about this in terms of stories that we absorb, right? We're reading a book. That book creates a feeling in us. And feelings are what cause us to take action, right? They are emotional fuel for our actions, for good or ill. And then when we have a bunch of actions that we take, we get a result. So when we are telling ourselves a story about our work, right? So Clyde says, not good enough to write a middle. So Clyde's telling himself, I'm not good enough to write a middle. How might he be feeling? And everyone's emotional experience is going to be a little bit different. But if I were telling myself that, I would feel a little demoralized or hopeless. And when I'm feeling hopeless, what do? Well, I'm probably going to go to Instagram and watch cat videos to make myself feel better because I don't like feeling hopeless, right? Somehow it's not emotional fuel to actually go do the thing of trying to write the middle. I don't know why, but that's not the way our brains work, right? So the result of me distracting myself from that feeling of hopelessness is a result that I don't write the middle. I don't end up with a middle. And then I have evidence that I'm not good enough to write the middle. And we keep reinforcing these negative stories, right? And thinking that we're proving them true. All right. So we're going to practice changing the story you tell yourself, but I want you to do this from a well-regulated nervous system, or at least slightly better than it is right now, right? But there's no, again, impermanence. Our nervous systems don't stay perfectly regulated and they're not designed to. But before we do work like this, I want you to do it from a place where we're like, okay, I just took a few deep breaths in through my nose and out a little longer than the in breath. It can just be as simple as that. Couple rounds of breathing in through your nose and out through your nose or your mouth. If you're kind of upset right now, you can blow it out, but just making that exhale a little longer than the inhale. Just do a couple rounds of that. Gets you a little more settled. Okay, so pick one of your negative thoughts. Some of you had a real mix of positive and negative, which is fantastic because we're going to lean into the positive thoughts that you already have. And by positive, positive and negative, we could get into a whole philosophical discussion, but the helpful thoughts that will move you toward your goal, right? So, but I want you to pick one of the unhelpful thoughts that you know is not moving you toward your goal. All right. And then I want you to ask yourself, is it true? Like in a court of law, or if you were in the, high school championship debate team, could you absolutely prove that this negative thought is true? Give me a yes or no in the chat. And bonus points if you tell me what the negative thought is, and then answer, is it true? Krista says no. Yep. Miko says no. Laura says, what if you don't know if it's true? That's great, Laura. And you can admit, like, I don't know if that's true. Then you can just stick with that answer. Zoe says no. And then next question, these are questions from Byron Katie that I've adapted for writers. You could go a level deeper. If you say, is this true? And you go, yes. Then you say, do I absolutely know that this is true? And maybe you still don't know, and that's okay. Now we have a clearer answer rather than just believing on its face that it's true because it's a thought going through our head. Sean says, not yet, probably not. Rachel says no. Jen says nope. Spelling is shit, true. But is it helpful for you to even worry about that? We are in a day and age where you do not need to know how to spell. It is fucking irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. I once did a author visit for a 5th grade class, and the teacher got a little mad at me because she was trying to reinforce why it's so important to spell well. And I'm like, it's not important. But it's not, right? So why are you hanging on to that? Your inner saboteur wants you to hang on to that because it doesn't want you to move forward and making you think that that's a big deal. Carrie says, no, not true, that I don't have anything to say. Eleanor says, yes, I write in my second language and will never be able to write in English like a native. Why might that be a good thing, Eleanor? Why might that be a good thing for your particular book and your particular message? Danielle says, it's not going to be fun. Yeah, it will be true if I let it be true. That is often a very, very true answer. Yeah, so you guys are getting it. And we do get, Jim says, yes, it's true that I'm not quite settled into my habits. Great. And then, Jim, I want you to focus on reframing that, because that could be a neutral statement. It might not mess you up at all, but it depends on how much emotional weight is in it when you say it to yourself. So tell me in the chat, Jim, actually, like, when I think I'm not quite settled into my habits, how do I feel? And I'll look down below for your answer. These are all great. Again, I wish I could read everyone, but we've got over 1,600 people in the challenge, by the way. So it's very exciting. You're not all showing up for the live calls, but you'll be watching on replay. Yeah, and for the person with the spelling, Anne says, I spell perfectly and have loads of trouble finishing writing. Yeah. Your inner saboteur is always going to be looking, right, for the thing that it's going to use to get you, right? It's going to custom tailor its message. All right, so let's go forward. Now I want you to ask another. We're trying to loosen up this story that's not serving you, right? We're just trying to loosen its grip on you. So the next question I want you to answer is, where do you think you picked this up from? Who told you this story? Was it the culture? Was it a teacher? Was it a parent? Was it a critique buddy? Where did you get this story from? And I'm going to go back to Jim. Jim says disappointed, right? So that's where it's tricky, because your statement sounded kind of neutral, right? It almost even sounded hopeful, like, oh, I'm not settled in my new habits yet, but it has you feeling disappointed. So that's one that needs our attention. Prior to uprooting my life and moving to New Orleans, I was very consistent. I'm only a month in here, so I'm willing to give myself grace, but I'd like it to speed up. Yeah. All right. So we're going to reframe that one, Jim. That's the one I want you to keep working on through the rest of this call. Okay. So Lori got her story from a teacher of an online course. Anne says, mother, teacher, friends. Eleanor says, no one specifically. I'm telling it to myself. Okay. Just look one layer deeper just in case. You might be absolutely right, but usually we pick this shit up from somewhere. Tanya says, must have a perfect argument before writing all the schooling, especially scientific. Yes. Right. And where did you learn that, Tanya? Michael says, Asian parents that want A pluses across the board and more than a 4.0 GPA. Yeah. That can be a huge influence. Huge influence is what our parents expected. Sean says, I researched things to death, and this is something I cannot research. It's something I do not know, and it drives me nuts. Yes, super interesting to look at. I'm going to read a couple more. We're going to go on. Tanya says, colonial standards. Yep, absolutely. Beth says, I've been told by others that I am a good writer. It's just me saying I'm not. Yeah. And who are you comparing yourself to then, right? Sometimes it can be like, oh, I'm saying I'm not a good writer because I'm judging myself against who knows who, right? So you can probe. We just want to probe these questions and really, really listen. Okay. And then the secondary question there, which we don't have to go into right now, is, are they a good role model? Have they done the thing that we're trying to do? Do they have a really clean slate with no ego attachment to telling us whatever they told us? All right. Third question. This is the most important one, again, adapted from Byron Katie. Who would you be, or what could you do if you did not tell yourself this story? Right? If you had a benevolent little mini stroke where you literally could not think this thought anymore, it was just wiped from your brain, how would you be able to show up differently? Tell me in the chat. Sarah says, I wouldn't procrastinate. Max says, I'd be unsufferable and insufferable, LOL. Tanya says, where do we go? Oh, it's moving so fast. I love it. Tanya says, I would just write it. No fear. I would play. Danielle says, I'd get no resistance from the inner rebel. Or it says, I think I'd be hopeful and energetic. Karen says, I feel guilty for giving time to writing if it goes into family time. Yeah, and we can talk about that too. Anne says, I'd stay the same as I never listen to my half-empty cup troublemaker. Okay, great. Fabulous. Linda says, I would write joyfully. Priscilla says, I would write with abandon. Rachel says, I could prioritize my writing better, right? You get the idea, right? Now we can see how these stories are blocking us, and we get to intentionally decide what we do with that information now, right? Now we're empowered instead of just default believing whatever the inner saboteur is feeding us. So when we choose a new story, we want it to be believable. We don't go from saying, I am a bad speller to I have perfect spelling. Your brain's going to call bullshit on that. We don't go from saying I hate technology and I'm super scared of it to I love technology. You've got to already believe it. If you go back to your thought download, you probably have better stories in there that serve as better emotional fuel that you can lean into, right? So you want to be able to easily already believe it. And you want it to create a feeling that creates some emotional fuel to take your desired actions. All right. So how are we going to tweak the story? Tell me in the chat. How are you going to tweak that story? And this is nuanced, right? So we're going to create a new believable story, and then we're going to check the feeling that it creates. And you'll get practice with this all week. But tell me a rewritten version of your story. Anne says, I have a love affair with spell checker. Do you feel, and see how you wrote that in all caps? Doesn't that feel so different in your body when you say, I have a love affair with spell checker? Then no, it's definitely true. I'm terrible at spelling. It's a real problem. Right? I'm adding words to what you originally said, but totally different feeling and still true. Clyde says, I can do this. So Clyde, when you say I can do this, what's the emotion in your body that it generates to check if that is strong enough? Sarah says, I will tell myself that if other people have achieved this goal, then I can too. Yep. Yeah, that's a great one. And it's even better if you can be like, I think I'm a little smarter than that person over there who did it, right? It's okay to do that in our own heads sometimes and be like, there's nothing special about that person that I don't have, right? Like I can do it. If that person can do it, I can do it. Eleanor says, I can't change who I am as in writing in my second language, but I will try not to think about it. I would actually like to coach you on that a little bit, Eleanor, if you're game, because I think you have more options than just avoiding thinking about it, as Anne is pointing out here as well. Rachel says, I'm not taking away from family time when I prioritize my writing for even just 30 minutes. Yeah, I really like for women, especially who are having guilt about taking self-time. Fast forward 20 years into the future. Would you want your child to be able to take 30 minutes of creative time for herself or himself or themselves, right? Would you want that for them? Then we got to model it. Right? Then we got to model it. And then you're doing it for your family, not just selfishly, right? It's like, this is actually for the greater good because it charges me up. It refills me. It's good modeling for my kids. This is a win-win. Jim says, I'm going to allow myself to improve. Every day gets more and longer. As long as I show up, I'm moving forward. Yes. Yep. And check the emotional fuel, right? How does that feel? Beth said, I would write the story and not worry about who will read it. I would write it for me. Yep. Smile, Laugh, Giggle says, I know I have accomplished other milestones I had believed impossible, so I can accomplish this too. Yes, that's a really, really good one. All right. Read each other's stories because this will give you ideas about tweaking yours as well. Yes, Krista has a great one. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. It just has to be. Yeah.